I guess I'll start. I'm Andrew. I work at Thurston Community Media up in Olympia, Washington.
My name's Alex Chiu. I'm an instructor of stop motion animation here at Open Signal, but I also used to teach at the Multnomah Art Center, the Walters Cultural Arts Center, and the Multnomah Libraries. So I do a lot of after-school programs.
Nice. So I guess we were going to start by showing some of the software that we like to use for different animation programs. And I was going to show you a few examples that went along with them. Let's see if that is working right now. Mirror? Apply. Yeah. So I like to use Linux. I don't like Windows. Mac is too expensive for me, so Linux is really, really beautiful. Who here has heard of OpenTunes? So who here has heard of Studio Ghibli?
Yeah.
Okay, so OpenTunes is software that was written and designed for Studio Ghibli back in like the 90s by an Italian software developer, and it was designed so that the hand-drawn 2D process that they were all used to could be translated into the digital age, and they could start working with computers without having to learn a whole new infrastructure. 2 years ago, Studio Ghibli, or Ghibli, however it's pronounced either way, decided to release an open source version of the software to get more 2D animators out there in the world, just so people would study it and know how to do it. So that is a very powerful piece of software. This is a little cartoon. Is there audio? Okay, this is a bit of a cartoon. If there was audio, you'd hear my friend Miles saying the same thing over and over again for different takes. But this was all drawn and animated in OpenTunes. The perspective shifting, the Z-depth variation, there's other effects you could put in there. And this is sort of finished. This was, I put this together like in an evening for fun. But just to kind of demonstrate the kind of quality you can get, this looks about as good as the Flintstones to me or something, right? Like just the fact that a person at home can make something like this and train kids how to do stuff like this is just kind of tells you about the times that we live in and the stuff that we have access to. Another tool that we like to use is Blender. And I only have one little Blender thing here. But Blender is an open source 3D software that has a really great physics calculator built into it. And it's one of those programs where most people look at it and they say, no thanks, like I do not have the time to learn what these millions of buttons do. But just like looking at a soundboard or something, you're not going to use a million buttons at once. You're going to use one set of buttons at once, and then you can really start learning it and approaching problems that way. I like to use it to make little title cards for the ends of productions, just for fun, again. So this is my production fixed positions, and these are some physics happening. And you get some pretty fun, unexpected results out of it as well, which is part of the fun of using extremely esoteric software, is you get some really weird stuff happening. An app I like to use on the phone is called iMotion. iStopMotion is very similar. They basically do the same thing. But I like to use it for a lot of previs kind of stuff. I worked on an animation for the city of Tacoma a couple years ago with a friend who got that contract. And we were prevising using iMotion. So I was literally just taking pictures of the individual frames and testing them out and seeing how they would work out with effects and different techniques just to kind of see without having to go through a lot of effort of putting it together for real. So drawing this probably took about 20 minutes. Taking the iMotion pictures of it probably took about less than 1 minute, so that in that case I could see what was going on without having to scan it all and put it in the Final Cut and all that. I'll show you two more things here real fast. So this is the movie, the finished product of those test animations from iMotion. This is all scanned at a high resolution and composited using Final Cut Pro X. So there's no special animation software going on in this case. It's literally just Final Cut and importing, so scanning like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of still images and then putting them into Final Cut, doing Control D and making them 0.2 seconds long, and then turning them into a compound clip. And now you have an animation. And now you have a clip that you can actually composite with other clips very easily, control the speed on, et cetera, et cetera. So with the tools that we have now, we can make some really, it's based on the tarot, so there's a lot of interesting things going on in there. The tools we have now, we can make really complicated expressions of things without having to learn a whole lot of new things in terms of technology. So technology is not the barrier in that case. Here, we'll quit that. The last one is a video from summer camp. We do an animation summer camp every year. We do one for 8 to 12-year-olds, and then we do one for, or 8 to 11, and then 12 to 16. And they always produce really great work. So if you want to see this whole video, it's on YouTube. If you look up, there's some community media, and then YPN, Young Producers Network. We have all the videos on there. But this is very basic zoetrope kind of stuff. We scan them using iStopMotion, actually, because that's on all the iPads, just to kind of show the kids a very basic, like what a basic animation is, what is like moving imagery based on single frames, and how does that actually translate. We do different techniques. We'll do the zoetrope. Oh, I forgot this video player is kind of broken. So I can't show you the last thing. But they do a final project on the last 2 days. They take every single thing that they've learned throughout the week and just kind of slam it together. We do writing workshops. We try to get an idea down as fast as possible, and we try to reconcile opposing ideas as fast as possible. We try not to ignore any ideas. We try to get them all like on the boat. So in this case, they had multiple ideas, and one idea was, why don't they should be traveling through portals? So we were like, oh, why don't they travel through portals to each idea? Like each land is that kid's idea, and then they're going through all of them. And we did that, and they made a great production about a penguin chasing a snowboard through different realities and realms, and it's quite good. So yeah, that's the bulk of the software that we use, and I guess some examples of how we use it. Did you want to?
Yeah. So I also teach animation. I actually created the whole program on my own in terms of what I teach, and I think a lot of it I got a chance to. Well, so I started by teaching cartooning, basic drawing, and comics and that sort of a thing. And it's actually the ease of technology that got me into teaching animation. And it's so I exclusively teach animation on iPads, just because it's really portable and it's easy for me to set up. So a lot of the way that I went into teaching animation was trying to think of just efficient ways to get kids to access animation software. So I really have pared it down. So I probably on my own, I have about 9 iPads that I bring to classes. And the easiest way to do it actually is just a book stand. You can, I mean, this is kind of a small iPad right over here. But if I flip it this way, I can just stick it on top of, a book stand, and then use a small piece of clay or whatever they want and start animating right off the bat. So what's nice about the software is it actually has a lot of tools that professional software uses. So at OpenSignal, I teach with DragonFrame software, and most of the techniques most of the perks of DragonFrame are actually in this program. So this is not actually iStopMotion, it's the StopMotion Studio Pro. And I prefer this one because there's just a lot of functionality to it. You can change the frame speed, and it has the ghosting effect, as you can see. So you can see what the last frame was like. So if you want to take it away and you want to change the shape of it, you can put it back to where it was. And then over here, you can change the frame speed. So if I want to do 8 frames a second up to 30 frames a second, I can change it however I like. And you can also preview it pretty easily, just like that. So when I go to these classes, I mean, I end up bringing a lot because I try to teach a lot of different things. So you can do simple stop motion. So you could use paper cutouts, you can use paper puppets and clay. for stop motion, but you can also teach basic hand-drawn animation as well. So we do walk cycles, basic rotoscope, which is just tracing animated frames so that they understand how that works. We do, I do flip books and also zoetropes too. But I think it might be fun just to have you guys see some of the work that my students put out. And this was just one summer camp. It was a 5-day summer camp over at the Multnomah Art Center. Maybe even a 3-day summer camp, but it went by pretty quickly. So these are just the different lessons that I taught them. Oh, the sound works. So these are paper puppets, so that way they can take their own drawings and animate it without having to draw frame by frame. Yeah, that's kind of like a time lapse. So they draw one part at a time and then have the character wave. So it's just like a simple loop animation that I have them do as a group. And we also just set it up so that they can draw on the dry erase board as well. Oh, at Dollar Tree. But I actually went to a hardware store and got a big slab of dry erase board and cut them into smaller sections. So yeah. So this we just did traditionally with tracing paper. So they traced over a walk cycle and then they did their own character on top of it. And what's nice about the software is with flipbooks, you can, like the zoetrope, you can take pictures of each frame and it actually looks pretty smooth in the end. The resolution is the resolution of the iPad photos, so you can get high def nowadays with the iPads. I use pretty old ones just for affordability, and I kind of like the fixed focus that the old iPads had versus the autofocus that they have now, but it's just preference. And then we did like a simple armature puppet on a stick where they can move the body parts around. It's kind of an introduction to armature. So that's just, oh, thank you. Thanks, I appreciate it. What's fun, I mean, I'm just gonna go into this app in specific because you can use it for a lot of different functions. I don't know if the sound was working earlier, but so this is like a short film that I made myself, and so basically it has the way that it does the onion skinning is it goes back in between the camera and the frame that it has. But you can, what's nice about this app, and it's more sophisticated than other apps I think, is there's a timeline on the bottom. You can change the frame rate over here. So whatever you want, you can You can make it 12 or 15 frames a second or even slower. So for the kids, usually I would say they do animations from about 6 to 8 frames a second. And for more people who are a little bit more aware of stop motion, who have more control, I would say 12 to 15 frames is good for what they're working on. And it also has, I'll show you some of the tools that they have. There's a lot of camera functions, so they have white balance and brightness, ISO and focus, so that you can adjust the focus. The challenge that I've been having with teaching with iPads is that the new cameras have very sensitive autofocus. So what I would recommend is if you're going to try to teach with them, to try to set it on fixed focus. So once they have a shot, or if they have a set plane like this, try to get it in focus and lock the focus. That way it doesn't jump in and out of focus, because that's going to mess up the animation a lot. And then let me try to find some fun things. So there's sound effects. You can add audio. Let me try to do this first. I want to try to do the microphone. So it counts down and just uses the microphone that's on the iPad itself. Whoa, I'm on the moon. Wow. These are colorful. Yay. So they just record it with their own voices. Oh no, I just exited it. Let me just do that again real fast. I apologize. Oh, look, I'm on the moon. Okay. Let's see if it works. Oh, look, I'm on the moon. So they have that, and then they have preset sound effects. So if you want to find a rocket sound or something like that, you could find it. Also, what's nice about this is you can actually select sections of the film and then copy it and paste it. So that's really good for loop animations. If you want to make it loop back and forth, you don't have to. So that just looped back and forth, but it was hard to tell. It was just like so you can copy and paste frames, and you don't have to take it over and over. You can delete frames really easily. And you can even draw and erase on top of frames. So this is something my student actually taught me. I had a hard time figuring out how to make things look like they were floating, because usually if Leica's doing it, there's like a whole crew of people just photoshopping the wires and armatures out. You can actually draw on top of the frame. So if there's a wire on top, depending on what you use, you can like draw over the wire, or you could add little effects. So this is good for rotoscoping too. So if they do like a simple stop motion, you can teach them how to draw on each frame and put text into the frames, or if lightning bolts are coming out of a robot, they can just draw right on top of it. And also erasing, you can erase the armatures away, or if there's something in the frame that you don't want in the frame, you can draw over it or erase on it. So I feel like that's a really good feature that they have. And I'm trying to think what else. Oh, they also have, well, there's different guides, so you can add guides, and they also have green screen. So let me see if I can find that. So they have green screen over here, and I haven't had the need to use that, but basically you guys all understand the concept of green screen. You just find the different chroma key that you want to set it to, and you can isolate colors and then put colors, frame pictures or different backgrounds underneath. So it is a very sophisticated program, so it's kind of a tool that all comes in one iPad. So when I go to a place, I'll bring clay and paper and hole punchers and scissors, and I'll have all that stuff for them, and it's really easy for me to deal with the technology. So I just bring 10 iPads, and that way kids don't even have to work in groups, because I think that's the one big drawback about teaching animation is the software is so expensive and the technology is so expensive. When I learned, I took some classes at PNCA, and they only have so many Dragon frame booths and DSLR cameras. So the fact that kids, I can have 10 iPads and each kid has their own iPad is a really good advantage, because a lot of the times if they're working in groups of 3 or groups of 5, they get bored really easily, or some people who are not interested will run off and not be involved. And this way, everyone can be involved and kind of create their own content and get into the aspects that they want to get into. There is another app that I use that's like a frame-by-frame drawing app that I use. It's called Animation HD. And I might be able to show you, but I think this is a little bit more appropriate with the iPad Pros because there's a little bit more control. But even with a simple stylus, I can just draw frame by frame and create animations that way. So I really do think, and these are all high definition. You can get like full high def from these animations. So I think they're great tools, and I think that it's making animation really accessible to students. And I already have a lot of students who are like 10, 12 years old who are creating really professional things. And I'm just like, if I had access to this as a kid, that's all I would want to do all day. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool what's happening with iPads. And yeah, that's it. I know that was pretty quick. If you guys have any questions, I think that we can open it up for questions.
Just had a quick question about the Stop Motion Pro. Have you tried just putting it on a laptop and hooking in a camera?
I think with the laptop and camera, the best setup is the iStop Motion software. I mean, what do you think?
I like iMotion Pro actually, personally, because I think it has more, just more on in the program options.
Is that on the laptop or on the iPad?
That's what I use personally. What we use on
okay.
iPads is actually iMotion.
Oh, okay.
No, iStop Motion, the one that has the little clay man.
I
They all
gotcha.
have like the same name. It's so confusing.
I gotcha.
But yeah.
I think when I was learning how to do it, there's these really simple kits where they have really inexpensive cameras and it shoots 30 frames a second no matter what, and then you can make it shoot on twos if you want to, and that's usually hooked up to a computer with iStop Motion. So that's like an inexpensive app that comes on Mac PCs or Mac computers. But then the one that we teach here is a really expensive and sophisticated program called Dragon Frame. I think that's pretty, I mean, I got into animation through teaching cartooning, but I think that that's pretty much industry standard animation, stop motion animation software, and you hook that up to DSLR camera, and usually you work off of like a MacBook Pro or something like that. So we have six Dragon Frame setups here at OpenSignal.
So what were the programs on the iPad that you were using?
The ones that I'm using, it's called Stop Motion Studio Pro. There is a free version, but there's just more functions on the professional version, and it's really inexpensive. I think it's like $6, and then you can put it on as many computers as you want, or as many iPads as you want. So personally, I have like 11 or 12 devices, you know? So I can pull it out and teach on my phone or an iPad or any device like that. And so that's Stop Motion Studio Pro. And then the one that's frame by frame drawing is called Animation Creator HD. I also have some that I've been playing around with. This is not my favorite. I've actually been trying to get the Open Studio to replace the app with Stop Motion Studio, but this is the one that I started teaching with. I just feel like it crashes a lot, and it doesn't have the timeline functions, and it doesn't have the sound functions. So we end up using iMovie to do sound and editing and that sort of a thing. So I would just recommend using Stop Motion Studio because it has everything. And then it kind of works a little bit like, what's the After Effects? So when you use the Adobe suite, you can do After Effects and you create these vector images or vector characters that you can move around. Sorry, that's a green screen app. That's completely different. But there's this one. You got into doing too? Yeah, you should talk about that now if you want to. Do you want to hook it up?
Sure, yeah. I just wanted to throw out real quick. The reason why I chose iMotion for myself is because it's free. The Pro version is like $5 and it lets you export HD, which became worthwhile.
Oh,
so
I'm
that's
sorry.
that's okay.
So this is another app that I've experimented with, but I've never had enough confidence to teach it in a class. It's called Do Ink, and it's a little bit more of a
Do ink animation. It's like one word. It looks like it says doink. But they make this app animation, and they make one called Green Screen, which is like the best green screen app I've ever used. It's the only one that I found that lets you composite 3 or 4 layers of video, and none of the other ones would do that. Which is, these are on iPad and green screens on iPhone as well. But I mean, realistically, if you're teaching, like, it's probably going to be on an iPad because these are expensive and they're little. These are relatively affordable now. The iPads that we use are all from like 6 or 7 years ago. Like, these are not even new. And the kids always come in and say, like, what's wrong with your iPads? Like, why are they so slow? And we're like, hey, they work for what we're doing.
Do you use the iPad too?
They're 4s.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're still...
It's not even that outdated.
It's not even that outdated, yeah. So this is a little cartoon that my coworker Freddie actually made. He also does animation stuff, but just to kind of demonstrate some of the stuff in the program, just to show what a finished thing looks like. Who knows the difference between vector graphics and bitmap graphics? You want to explain what that is?
Well, the easiest thing is that vector graphics, you can draw clean straight lines with them and size them any size. That's the biggest advantage, and they don't lose resolution. Bitmaps, the bigger you go, the more blockier you get, the more aliasing.
Exactly, yeah, you get pixelization and the resolution doesn't scale up. So this program uses vector graphics, which is what kind of makes it unique in some of the animation ones. Because I think you'll agree, we both probably have a lot of animation apps that all do like different little things here and there.
Yeah.
This is the go-to one for us because it teaches the kids a little bit about vector graphics. It forces us to kind of teach them how this complicated Illustrator-esque interface works, which, even though we're not showing them how to use Illustrator, it does show them what software, like real robust software, looks like in the form of an iPad. So if you look at there, you have a whole toolbar that has like everything you'd imagine on the desktop environment. Each one has all of these subsettings: cut, copy, paste, group together, duplicate, and importantly, align 2 different objects so you can make them line up together. And we teach that all to them, and it's very intuitive to younger age groups. They look at that stuff and they're just like, yeah, I get it. It flips it around. Yeah, I get it. It selects all of them. It's like, okay, great. So they're not really surly like that. They're just, so this app is fun because it does have a timeline on the bottom. You can duplicate. You can add extra frames. And because you're drawing on the iPad in a way that you can edit later, like for instance, let's just go back. If I made a new drawing and I drew this squiddy character, like that, I am using my finger, yeah. So you're finger painting. You could also use your fancy nubbing pins that we all got from the vendors out there to draw with. I was thinking about grabbing some of those for the camp. And they make nicer pens as well. I don't think I have it with me, but I use a tablet. Oh wait, is this? So this is like $20 on the internet, and this is just like the little rubber nib pen that we all are familiar with. But this one has a little plastic disc and a fine point like ball on the end, so that it's very precise. The rubber pen thing is not very precise. Oh yeah. Now. Oh no. Oh, it just disconnected. Okay. So this pops off easily. That's the only thing to think about, but
Just see how precise they are. Oh,
pretty close, right on the edge.
Oh, it's really nice. Yeah.
It's not bad, yeah. And
it fixes it kind of like sharpens it too. the program.
Yeah, it kind of simplifies the line a little bit. So
Cool, thanks.
yeah, no problem. So these are really cool. They're not super duper expensive, and I guess the main benefit is precision. You can't see what you're drawing when your finger is covering it up, but you can when you have a pen that's doing it. So anyways, the app itself allows you to make a lot of mistakes, and it allows you to correct them relatively easily. So if let's see, I gave this squid some beautiful purple eyes. Just like that, okay. And then I changed my mind later. I think, oh, you know, maybe I want them to be more of a bluish kind of color. I can select the thing, and I can go back, and I can just change it in the color picker, just like that. And because it's a vector graphic and not a bitmap, it changes the entire thing all at once. It doesn't, I don't have to like go around the edges all fine pointed and be like, oh, I'm missing part of it. It's a very digital workflow in that sense. And the kids pick up on that pretty quick too. Like they pick up on the fact that you can really go hog wild in here. They usually go for the shapes and start throwing them all over the place, just making these like crazy worlds and then adding little characters in there. So you were talking about onion skinning. For those that aren't familiar with that, that is like the baseline how you animate things property. So when you have your drawing like this, okay, and you're thinking like, all right, so the next drawing, the arm is going to be up, you know. So what you can do is add a frame, and now you can see the previous drawing is still being shown. That's basic onion skinning. You can modify it in the settings to show the forward, before, after, how many frames. So if you're doing some very complicated kind of thing where you're putting down the big movements first and then going back to fill in the in-betweens, that kind of helps you do that. So in this way, it's called frame-by-frame animation. You're literally just drawing each frame one over the other, and I can do that like this. I can just draw these two pretty close together, and like magic, when I hit play, this will look like some weird animation just for a second. It's like, that was pretty effortless to make something like that. Another fun technique here is, let's say instead of wanting to trace it and draw it, you can actually duplicate it. Because it's a vector graphic, this next frame in here is exactly the same as the previous one. It's identical to it. So I can select it with my little arrow, just like in Illustrator. I can grab these nodes, just like in Illustrator, start moving them around. La 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 la. Okay. And this is why summer camp is all day long, because doing this stuff takes a while. Okay, so now I've made some very rudimentary changes in this guy, and like I can move him around like that. Now when I hit play, yeah, that's yeah, isn't that great? What is happening? So I think that's at 30 frames a second right now, and there's 2 frames, so you get kind of erratic results like that. Instead of continuing on that path, I'm just going to show you this fun little cartoon, again put together by my coworker Freddie. When he gets bored, he gets a lot more creative than I do, so you get little rocket ships flying around. Where's the whole thing? I think this might be the whole thing here. So you get the rocket ship. Oh, now we go to another scene. Now you get this nice interior shot. Danger. I think he was playing this game called Slither.io a lot, and thinking about that when he made this. But yeah, he made this, I think, in like half an hour. He was just goofing around and learning how to use the program himself. So yeah, very, very easily with minor. So this is called animation. Super, yeah. But the company's called Doink, so that's probably the easier way to find it.
And is it free?
No. So this app and green screen both cost $10, I want to say. I think you can buy them bundled together because they encourage you to use them together, like make something in animation and put it in a green screen, or vice versa. And yeah, you should be able to buy them bundled together. Now there are free things too, like the one you were showing, the AC. I think Autodesk makes that, right?
Which one?
The animation
HD.
Yeah.
That one is free. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it.
It's really good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it more emulates a hand-drawn style as well. Like
It's pretty rough. It's not like vectorized, so it doesn't smooth itself out.
right, yeah. It's a bitmap-based one, so it kind of, I mean, like it has the roughness of like a pencil almost. You know, it's still beautiful looking, but it's not as flexible after you've made it.
Yeah, it's like it draws like Microsoft Paint. So
Yeah.
if you're familiar with drawing with a mouse, that's what it feels
Yeah.
like. Some people are better than others at getting used to it.
Yeah, yeah. And, you know, it all really is practice, too. Like, a lot of people, a lot of the kids get taken to the camps by their parents, and they don't really want to be there sometimes. It's like, oh, I have to draw all summer. And it's like, we try to figure out, like, how to make it fun for them, too. Because if they're with the attitude of, like, not wanting to be there from the get-go, it's harder to get them to want to be there later on. But if you show them the apps and you show them like the animation and you show them like, hey, look, you can take a picture of you and make your eyes roll around or something like that, then they really get into it and they realize that it is fun and it is like an empowering tool for them to make something of their own. So yeah, I don't know what to say after that, but.
Do you have any good apps for like 3D animation or those kind of stuff?
Not on the iPads. They're not powerful enough for that. But we teach Blender classes, although no one ever signs up for them, so we don't really teach them. But we have Blender classes, and if people ask us, we'll show them how to do stuff in Blender.
Do you do classes with Apple Motion?
Same kind of thing. We do, but no one signs up for them, so it's really more of a one-on-one kind of thing. In that vein, something I was thinking about, the reason why people don't sign up for some of these classes is the way we advertise them is too clinical. It's like Apple Motion, learn Apple Motion, when it really should be learn how to make bottom thirds for your TV show that you make. Learn how to make your own titles and things for your TV show, you know? But
Showing them what you can do with it first so that because if somebody doesn't know what it does at all anyhow,
yeah.
I found they're less likely to be interested, but if you show them what you can do with it, then they're like, oh, yeah, I want to do that.
Yeah, totally. Did you have any other things you'd like to cover?
I'm just open to more questions.
All right.
So, if somebody's just starting an animation program, and I know you've been talking about you using older iPads, and I don't know how you get a hold of older ones, what would you say is a launch point for what you would suggest, like setting up a program tomorrow? Like what iPad would you get?
I would get probably a 3 or a 4 if you can manage it, just at like the lowest end, because I mean, unless your experience tells you that the 1 and 2 are okay too, but I feel like these are already kind of slow.
With the software that I use, so I use the Stop Motion Studio primarily. I've never had any lag or anything like that, and I personally buy the iPad 2s because they're really cheap, and I have like 8 of them now, and I can get them for around $100 if I look around on Craigslist. And what I like about them is they have this fixed camera, and it's really good for young kids because the autofocus, they're just trying to push as fast as they can, and a lot of the times the autofocus just needs time to kind of realign. So if I have that fixed camera, they don't have as much of a problem, especially if they're using like tripods that move around a little bit. But I'm sure that there's much more advantage getting updated software and hardware, just because there's going to be more sophisticated apps and there's going to be other technology that comes around that can only work on those types. But I've been teaching with these iPad 2s for about 5 years now, and they've still worked.
So do they have all the same mapping and everything, like I saw the grids and stuff on there and the ghosting and?
Yes.
So that's the program that those would
Yeah.
run?
Yeah, I've never had delays with the specific app that I use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So you guys have been talking about an Apple environment. What about a PC environment?
Yeah, there's good animation software on the Android tablets. I use what's it called? I think it might just be called HD Animator or something like that. I spent $5 on it, but it really is like geared towards traditional hand-drawn animation, and on like a little tablet, and like you can choose different brush parameters, so you can really get a very hand-drawn look. That's a really cool one on there, and a lot of the ones that are on the iPads are also on Android. You're just going to have the same kind of parameters where it's like, is this tablet going to work well with this app? Where with the iPads, they are just generational. It's like the 2 and up all seem to work well.
And it could help you learn how to hand draw as well. I'm still drawing stick man.
I would say if you practice a lot in the apps, then it would help you learn how to hand draw.
Sorry, I feel like with animation, it's more about getting the movements right and making it feel fluid rather than learning how to draw well. And that's kind of an issue with some younger kids because they know how to draw one thing over and over again. And they know how to draw like one anime face really, really well. So when they try to do animation, it throws them off completely because they're like, oh no, I have to like make its arm move, but I only like to draw the arms like this. So what it does is it challenges a person to think about movement and then draw characters at different angles and different positions. And I think that that is a good way to learn how to draw in general.
Yeah, definitely. You know, on that note, I've been trying to find an app that allows you to do mesh-based 2D animation, which is something that you can do in OpenTunes. And I think there is an app on there. I haven't asked if we can like buy it and put it on there and all that stuff. But basically, what you do is you make your drawing like your character, and you make them like kind of with their arms out or like in positions where nothing is connected, and you apply like a bone system to it, and you control the character like a puppet at that point, which isn't. I'm gonna say it can be kind of tacky looking. It's not like a great artful experience to do that, but it is a very fast way to get a thing done if you just want to have something have life to it or have some motion to it. And for a lot of the producers that we try to talk about animation stuff with and see where it fits into their productions, that's what they want. They don't want to get into the nitty-gritty so much as just have something that looks like an animation at the end of the day. So those are options too. Now, in terms of teaching the kids, that might be the last one you teach them because then that's the only one they'll want to do if that's what they see first. But yeah, they do make stuff that if you just want to have something be done at the end of the day, then you can have that.
What about like export options? Does it just go to like MOV or something?
Usually, yeah. Like you save it to your camera roll on the iPad. Are there any questions about like programs or anything like that? Or not programs like apps, but programs like camps or extracurricular activities?
Are all of your camps for kids, or do you have any adult animation?
We do an iPad class that includes the animation, and that's all ages.
I'm gonna start teaching a Dragon Frame class here at OpenSignal in the summer. So that's gonna be a transition, because I do usually teach kids. We've offered iPad animation class to adults at the Multnomah Art Center, but it's only been picked up once, and we just haven't had enough enrollment for that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's another funny thing too, is like we'll sporadically get people interested in class, but it's usually like right after Christmas or something, and they just got an iPad. So it's not like we're just training them at that point. We may never see them again. But at least we help someone use their iPad.
I just wanted to say too, as well as Dragon Frame for adults, we also at OpenSignal have Toon Boom, which is like a computer software, and then Blender as well.
Nice.
So,
Toon Boom
and
is
After
very
Effects,
nice.
there's animations you can do in After Effects.
What's Toon Boom?
Cool.
It's like a 2D software on a computer-based animation software.
It's like a lot of professional studios use it for production. There's like a lot of plugins that simplify very complicated movements and effects that just kind of add a nice professional gloss on it.
Do you ever do anything with like motion capture? I did a little bit of work with Optimus Community College. They did a term, and that's come down so much in price to be able to do motion capture, and then I don't know how integrate it into your animation, but that was pretty cool to watch. I don't know how to do it. I just kind of audited the class because they were teaching at the facility, but that's really come down.
I would say some of the kids do rotoscoping, but motion capture, like 3D point-based motion capture, is a little different.
Yeah, because there's a unit that's come down to $200 for the whole deal.
Oh yeah, you can jury rig that together too with a Microsoft Connect and PC and some little Home Depot dots.
Kind of for an experimental class, just because then you get people animated and they see their frames and building the skins. I'm just parroting. I don't know.
That's a really cool system.
Yeah.
There's a lot of appeal to that. I think they were kind of talking about that a little bit in the VR panel where they were showing that that you could now very quickly scan like a person, like with your iPad and the right app, you could make a 3D model of them really fast. And I guess with the right hardware setup, you could do the same thing pretty inexpensively. We haven't explored that. I don't know, have you guys played with that?
The only exposure that I've had to that type of thing would probably be the 3D painting stuff that people are doing and in virtual reality, but even that I don't have a lot of exposure to, so I'm not really familiar with it. I can't really talk about that.
If you want to do so I have a belief in art that it's good to learn things chronologically, in the sense of like learning drawing before you learn how to paint is better than jumping right into painting. You might be a great painter, but you won't know how to draw with a pencil. And the same thing like with videography, learning about art and then becoming a videographer is better than just picking up a camera and doing it. Even though you'll still get good content and good results, if you study a little bit of art first and framing and color and contrast and all that, then your art will be elevated, or your content will be elevated by art, which I believe in. So with the thing you're talking about, the motion capture, maybe starting with rotoscoping is a good place. You can videotape movements. We had a kid in a camp last year who really liked the video online of a guy dancing, like doing some like dance, some crazy dance. And so we downloaded the video off YouTube, and in that app that we were looking at, the animation one, you can load a video frame by frame. And she traced it, and it took like all week because she was being so meticulous, like around every finger, kind of detail, and changing like the color. Like the character was like a solid block of color with like the color changing in geometric ways. But that would be a great exercise if you want to get into animation, if you just want to have like a little study of like how human movement is in that way. And then when you're done, you'll have something really cool, and all you do is trace it.
Yeah. With the program that I had the walk cycle, and we broke down the walk cycle into 12 frames. Well, I had to manually do it, but I printed out each step of it and had them go over it with tracing paper. So that's sort of the idea of rotoscoping, but just in a more like paper and pencil method. So that's one thing too. But that's very different than
I really like the puppets.
Thanks.
The paper puppets.
Oh yeah. It keeps it simple because it's just most kids know how to draw already, and if they're interested in animation, it's because they know how to draw. And usually I start that as the first exercise because they can easily translate their own drawings into animation very quickly.
Yep. Oh.
I came in a little bit late, but did you already talk about pixelation, like youth using their own bodies?
No.
I found that in camps, especially like when you're with youth for a really long time, that good breaks where you're intentionally still learning during the like play break is to go outside and like set up like a car race with chairs or something and have them like pixelate their own bodies as animation, because then they're like being able to move around outside and get energy out, but also you're teaching them another kind of animation.
Oh, that's a great idea. Actually, that's funny that you said all that, because that's exactly when I started you started at the same station,
I did.
doing the same program. And when I was interning there, that's exactly what was happening every day, as we were filming them like racing.
Yeah.
Yeah, good idea. Any other thoughts or comments?
Other than the book stand and the one that you brought in, what other tools do you find useful when working in animation?
Lights, clamp lights, like shop lights. Those are really handy. Getting kids to think cinematically about what they're looking at. They have a instinct or preference to shoot straight down on not like that. I mean,
Okay.
like in a three-dimensional way, like the character's standing up vertically, but they're shooting down.
Huh.
Like for
Interesting.
some reason, it's hard to get the and I don't know why. Maybe it's the tripods we use or something
Oh,
to
okay.
encourage that. But to get them to think about this as like a movie camera and like the set they have as a movie. So just kind of like getting some visual language background before we get super deep into what we're doing.
I mainly just use the book stands because for my own independent teaching, it's really portable. But OpenSignal actually has a really good setup. So they do classes for youth filmmaking. So all the equipment that they use for iPad filmmaking, they also use for animation. So there's professional film tripods. There's these film cases that you can move around, which attach to different lenses. So there's like wide angle lens, telescope lens, that sort of a thing. And they even have these light kits that they use. So you can go as cinematic as you want to go. But when I do it, I just keep it pretty simple. I have like a book stand or like a little cardboard backdrop, the kind that you'd get at Dollar Tree, so that you don't see people in the background. And that's just how I like to keep it simple. But if you want to go all the way to getting lighting and lenses and film tripods and that sort of thing, you can do that as well. And it's completely equipped for iPads because there's a market for that. So yeah, they're making really cool stuff for iPads right now.
So that background thing, that is a really good practical thing to have, because the kids are walking around. So if you watch like stop motion videos on the internet, you'll always see the lighting is constantly changing. There's shadows constantly moving around, and that's from the person doing it and from people walking around them. So if you can have a big cardboard backdrop, we have like painted blue ones and like sky ones and solid black ones and things like that. It's just cardboard. That greatly helps eliminate it helps control the quality a bit on the final image.
And also with audio too, OpenSignal has handheld mics that you plug right into the iPad, and what that does is it eliminates sound from people around, because usually I'm talking or other students are doing sound as well, so they can kind of listen on their earphones to make sure that there's no sound interference, and then they can just talk right into the mic. So that makes a big difference too.
Oh yeah. Oh, also headphones and GarageBand, because animating is fun, and a lot of people like to do it all day, but your hand will get tired, your brain will get tired thinking about it, and it's nice to have something else creative to do that doesn't require a lot of like thought process to do it. So that ends up happening pretty much all the time. Whenever they would get tired or needed a self-break, they would just sit down and start playing with GarageBand. And in the process of doing that, most of them were also making little songs for themselves to use in the video. So you would hear like these like big like chord progression kind of songs for all the credits. So yeah, and that also just comes on every iPad anyway, so that's an easy one. Well,
I did bring in 5 iPads of my own and 5 book stands, and I have some extra clay, so there's 2 back there. If you guys are interested to test out mainly the stop motion software, you're welcome to check it out too.
cool. Yeah, I brought 4 iPads as well if you want to also see what we have on yours. A lot of the apps are the same, it looks like, which is cool.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Are there any other questions?
does anyone want to check out the iPads and see what kind of?
Yeah.
Okay.
grab an iPad kit from here.
I just kept it real stripped down. So if they just want to check out the stop motion software, that's what I have. But I think so. If anybody, does anybody want to see the iPad setup that Open Signal uses?
Sure, I do. Okay, I'll go.
Okay, that'd be great. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Question.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. So this one is a really great setup that I made for my phone. And this is more so, I like this setup a lot for drawing animation. So I teach them like the frame by frame animation and there's a lot of, like, I'll teach them how to do morphs. So it's like I take one object, and then, like, say it's a bird, and then it morphs into a dog. I teach them how to do that step by step. This is a good way of just taking pictures of frames.
Oh, you're on top. All right. So it's gonna be the one instructing.
You'll tell me the full name.
Sorry.
You're new here? I'm new here. So you're helping out with the video class this week? Sweet. Man, there's like a lot of volunteers.
Check this out.